Hello students, welcome back to the Unit 3 Part 2 of Integrated Logistics from the course Fundamentals of Logistics. In the previous class, that was Part 1, we have covered various aspects of performance measurement. In today's class, Part 2 and also the concluding session for logistics measurement, we will be covering various aspects, classifications and some modern tools that has come in the form of better measurement, giving better insights to the management. So, before we start the course today, let's do a recap of what happened in the previous class. In the previous class, performance measurement, we have tried to understand the concept, we have defined it, we have seen the importance of performance measurement, we have known what happens if the company does not do measurements analysis, we have seen the classification of performance measurement, the different classes, how different authors, academicians have defined it. The purpose, the overall purpose of performance measurement was also covered, and those were these three elements. I'm sure you'll be able to recall: monitoring, control and directing. Later on, we have gone to understand the approach or the attitude or an opinion towards performance measurement, that is either at a process based or an activity based perspective. However, we have taken care that the words that are commonly used across the entire course of the logistics measurement, like efficiency and effectiveness, have been effectively defined and segregated and separated for a better understanding. And finally, we are concluded with what is key performance indicators are. And I'm sure most of the points that is covered has been looked into by all of you people, and relevant material has been referred for this purpose. So today we'll be looking into how companies' logistics objectives are attained through performance measures. And one of the class of the measures was internal and external measures. We'll try and understand first how these measures really emerged. In front of you there is a picture. It is extracted from a research paper about how the changes happen to performance measurement as a concept. So it was a joint effort from the academicians as well as from the practitioners. And although it is not a very exhaustive table that is in front of you, we have to look into it as an evolutionary phase and see how changes really occur in any industry, in any activity or process of any industry. So let's see. The first we defined as what is traditional performance measurement. As in the previous session, we have covered that traditional performance measurement was purely focusing on cost. That means these were all financial measures. And obviously they were internally focused. So, internally focused and internal measures, that means the way internal measures have evolved, it came because primarily or traditionally firms were focusing only on cost matrices. Obviously, since cost was the only element that was looked into, it had having single dimension. And what are the target? What was the aim of the company for looking into these drivers, that is cost? Is obviously it is financial. They had to reduce the cost, increase the profits or increase their earnings, and these were the reasons, and it's all purely financial. So the desired benefits was obviously cost control, because once we look into cost, we look into the controlling cost as our aim to achieve profitable results. So profit becomes your objective and cost becomes your measurement. So, as I told you in the previous session, we are what we measure, and this is how firms are performing. But later on, some more elements were added, some more categories of analysis were taken into consideration into the traditional performance measurement that later on came to be known as the internal performance measurements. Now, at the same time, we will look into the next thing that came into picture, that is balanced performance measurement. Now, balanced performance measurement was a balance between internal focus and as well as external focus. So, obviously, it was not a single dimension, neither in the internal measures nor in the external measures. We had multi dimensions. There were different aspects that came into consideration. And the whole driver of balanced performance measurement emerged not from looking into cost. There was a shift in the mindset of the practitioners where they saw that innovation and learning are going to speed up the logistics process, and the fallout of it, or the outcome of it, will be definitely reduction in the cost and also increasing customer satisfaction. So now the objective was not cost. Cost was just incidental. Please keep that in mind. Or reducing the cost became an outcome of the entire process, and the process was all about innovation and learning in the organization. How to bring about newness. In the following slide, which is connecting to this slide, I'll be looking into or giving you a little bit brief about how much new innovations that has happened in the later part of this new century. That is your after 2010 and after 2000 and 2010, etc. The targets now are not just financial, it is both financial and non-financial measures. That is why we call it balanced performance measurement. And the desired benefit here is the most important. It says communication of strategic direction, which is a very important way to inform the entire organization personnel about what the top management team expects from them. It is through sheer actions, and these actions are driven by the way that management wants to measure efficiency and effectiveness. Please keep this in mind. This is one of the biggest benefit of what an organization can achieve. That is by focusing both on internal and external performance measurement. So before going ahead to understand what constitutes an internal and what constitutes external, we have to look into some recent innovations that has occurred in logistics. So the traditional logistics, that is my first point I want to make. The traditional logistics methods are totally outdated. It is obsolete. Even today there are many firms in India who carry out their same old ways of working. They don't like to change, but eventually they need to cater to the market demands, speed up the process, and they need to innovate. So logistics industries, as we all know, it constitutes of transportation, both inland and maritime waterways, international transportation, both ocean and air, followed by shipment tracking, and all these different areas, including warehousing, has gone through major technology shifts. For example, there are sensors that are built into your cargo ships, trains and vehicles, and this will help monitoring and tracking of the vehicle. Even companies that are involved in non-governmental activities, like we have in our country ISKCON, which is supplying Akshay Patra scheme food, meals to the school going children, and the vehicles that leaves during or just before their lunch hour to reach the meals is tracked through a GPS, and at a central location the officers can locate where exactly the truck is and whether there was any stoppage in the road, whether they reached in time, and whether the kids who are studying in the school could be availing a hot, nutritious food. So even at an NGO level, we have seen that monitoring and tracking has begun. Age-old days, we used to book the parcel through courier and then wait for a long time for the courier to arrive with absolutely no idea where our courier is getting stuck up or why there is a delay. An estimated delivery time was given to the customer and he used to keep waiting. But today, as soon as a parcel is sent either through an e-commerce or some friend of yours want to sell a parcel, he just gives you the voyage number or the parcel ID tracking number, and you can sit at the comfort of your home or office or college and look into your mobile by feeding the tracking number. Exactly you know where the parcel is and what is the estimated time of arrival of that parcel to you. This is monitoring and tracking, one of the best innovations to achieve customer satisfaction. Then we have radio frequency tags, we call it RFID tags. If you recall in the previous classes, I said the maximum labor hours lost is in picking, order picking, that is locating where the goods are inside a massive warehouse. Most of the time, and I even give an estimate of more than 60% of the time is lost only in searching where the goods are. That entire time today is saved, and because it's a labor saving ways, companies can track their inventory and the tag or the sensor is placed on the product and radio waves are sent out and the location is very known. There is something known as drones, which is a very hot topic today. It is used at the national level even for defense purpose, but it is also used by business firms. For example, Amazon Prime Air promises to reach through drones the parcels at home, and it will be very quick, very swift, and you order it, you may receive it within the same day. So the waiting time for the goods is very, very much reduced. And instead of manually looking for or moving the goods, today robots have come in warehouses and they have automated the storing and moving the goods inside the warehouse from one place to other. Of course, with RFID tags on it. And there are many more. Since our topic will be more about measurement and we need to restrict ourselves with the topic related, I would like to end up with Internet of Things. There are a lot of things to be spoken about: IoT, blockchain technology, and other technology that is coming in innovation. So now we'll be first looking into what are those internal performance measures and the external performance measure. Well, internal performance measurement has got 5 different measures. Initially it was, as I told you, only cost, but after cost, several more measures are added to it. So let us understand these are further divided into financial and non-financial measures. So the financial performance measures include cost, which we have already looked into and we'll be looking into in detail in the next slide. And there are certain non-financial performance measures that was also added to give a balance. Keep in mind, when we discussed about balanced performance measures, we spoke about internal and external, and then we also said the object, what we need to achieve is financial and non-financial measures. Here, internal performance measurement constitutes of both financial and non-financial measures here. So the non-financial performance measures include customer service, very important, productivity, and matrices related to quality, which is very, very intangible, very difficult to measure quality. Now, this ratio has both financial and non-financial perspective. That is one ratio, which is known as asset measurement. So totally we have 5 measures: cost, which is financial; customer service, productivity and quality, which is purely non-financial, and the fifth one is asset measurement, which has got both the qualities of financial and non-financial. That constitutes our internal performance measurement that we'll be discussing in detail, and followed by we have what is known as external performance measurement, which constitutes of customer perceptions measure, that means what customers think, which is also a measurement, and benchmarking best practices. These are two very important external performance measures. Now we'll dive down directly to the first part, that is your internal performance measure. Now, as we said, cost. When I say cost is an internal financial measure, let us define what is a logistics cost. And before we define that, we all know that cost, when I say, is operating cost. So we'll look into operating cost of logistics and be done with it. Not exactly. When we define the logistics cost, the definition should constitute about what is the desired output levels from the logistics system. Let me be very firm on that, because companies always think that reducing cost is easily achieved through certain very swift and quick action. This swift and quick action is through which costs are reduced are possible, because companies seldom think that how much are they deteriorating on their customer service levels by reducing cost. It is easy to fire a few employees in the warehouse, reduce the number of drivers and increase the number of hours each driver's drive, and yes, voila, you have reduced your cost. But what would eventually happen? The driver would be burned out, he'll get tired, he may reach the goods late, and the problems resurfaces. So reducing the cost is considered without reducing the level of customer service. That is very important. That's why we have to define the logistics cost based on the output desired from the logistics system without compromising on it. So with this, we will look into the generic or the general operating cost elements. Well, the total cost of logistics includes transportation, warehouse, inventory management, order processing, information systems, and purchasing and production related quantity, lots, that is their costs. So the cost of logistics, please understand, varies from industry to industry. For example, if you're manufacturing cement or bricks, your cost of logistics will be very high as compared to pharmaceuticals, which is very lightweight and voluminous amount of pharmaceutical drugs can be sent through a single lot. So now let us see what is logistics cost. Logistics cost is measures that in the total cost or a percentage of sales or per unit volume. That means logistics cost when it looked into as a percentage of sales or per unit volume or the total cost. You can look into logistics cost in all the three different dimensions. So some important, very important cost measures. Some is the word, all of them have not been covered because it's very exhaustive, and newer ways, newer industries that come, and every industry, every sector, every business firms requires one or the other transportation or logistics element involved in it. So we can't cover all the related aspects, so we generalized it as inbound freight, outbound freight. We all know what the meaning of the word freight is. If not, then we'll be looking into the transportation part of it and the international logistics part of it, where we'll define freight. Freight, in other words, is what a vehicle carrying goods means. That's all. Okay. So if we say that a vehicle carries passengers, then we say it is transportation. When the vehicle carries goods, we call it freight. So that's where the word freight arrives from. It is inbound and outbound raw material coming in the company and finished goods leaving the company premises. Warehouse cost is also an important cost, administrative cost related to logistics, and direct labor for loading and unloading of the goods. These are not full-time workers. And direct product profitability analysis can be done. Order processing cost, and well, again, it's repeated administration cost. So these are the different cost measures. As the name is very obvious, we'll not go into details of that. The next part of your internal measures now comes as a non-financial measure. And one of the first non-financial measure is your productivity. Now, let us understand what is productivity. Productivity is a ratio of output versus input. Having said that, it is going to be very easy to understand what is an output and what are the given inputs. But it is quite complicated and complex to understand productivity just by this lame definition. So let us enlarge the scope of the meaning of productivity. It is a ratio between output produced for quantities of input, which is very essential to understand. The problem arises here because it is utilized by the system to produce that same output. The confusion arises in this form. How much input have you used to produce equivalent output? Or when you were producing an output of, let's say, X quantities, what are all those considerations that goes into inputs calculation is difficult to determine. But for our understanding currently, it's an output to input ratio. That means it includes a relationship between goods and services which stand to be output and inputs that can come in the form of labor, capital, material and other resources. Productivity measures, as I informed, is very difficult to compute. Why? Because outputs are very difficult to measure sometimes, and the input utilization is difficult to determine for the same level of output that you're calculating. In this productivity, there are three different types of productivity measures: static productivity, dynamic productivity, and surrogate productivity. Now, if we look into the static productivity, it is at one time. That's why we call it static. That means when all outputs and inputs for a specific period are put into numbers one above the other and calculated, we call the answer as a productivity measure. That's fine, but that is known as static productivity. Now, practitioners and firm businesses are more interested in dynamic productivity, because dynamic productivity tells you a comparison between what happened previously for productivity and currently for productivity. That means two static productivities are compared. That is what makes it dynamic. So when outputs and inputs in the system for one period compare with the other period as given in your material slide, the result is dynamic. Now, the third part is surrogate productivity. Well, of course, this productivity is not actually the formula here, but it is representing those factors which are not directly included in the productivity, but definitely have an impact on productivity. That is why we call them surrogate productivity. Customer satisfaction has an input on productivity. Yes, definitely. How? Because customer satisfied will do repeat purchase. He may want to buy more quantity, she may want to look into more variety, and when company has to cater to these demands, their output will increase. When their output will increase, the demand for raw materials will increase, and in this way the ratios start changing, and in fact is better for the company, is because productivity ratio will improve when demand increases. So that is one of the way of surrogate productivity. Now, we will look into the important measures of productivity. So we have listed down a couple of them. The first of them is units loaded in a vehicle per person per hour. That's a measure of productivity. Cases or boxes filled and packed per person per shift. That's another measure of productivity. Idle time of the handling equipment is a productivity measure. This is a very interesting productive measure. What does it mean by idle time? Idle time is when you're idle. As simple as that. You're not doing anything. Right? But what is handling equipment got to do with it? Normally, when companies are producing multiple products in their factory, there is a possibility that till the process in one of the machine gets over for a particular product, the other machine is sitting idle. That means that idle time is a cost for the company, because machine needs to be constantly be running over the period of shifts, maybe 3 shifts or single shift for 8 hours. When the machines are not used, we call it's idle. So idle time of the handling equipment is also one of the measures of productivity. So normally what the company does here is, whenever such machines are idle, they would rather go for preventive inspection of the machine, so that they use the machine for some value creating activity and preventive care of the machine, instead of putting it idle or doing the same process at some other time. So throughput in the warehouse per hour is also a very important measure. I'm sure many of your students might understand what is throughput. It is the number of something that comes inside the warehouse and number of things that leaves the warehouse. That's your total throughput in the warehouse per hour. Okay, and that has to be increasing through better mechanization. There may be like railings, okay, where the goods, once it comes from the vehicle, is directly taken into lorry, and the lorry leaves the warehouse very quickly, and the second lorry comes into picture. If you look at manual loading and unloading, then each truck might have to wait in front of your warehouse for a longer time, so that will reduce your productivity. So this is a comparison with historical data or with some standardized measures is also done in order to understand productivity. Now we'll go for the next internal performance measurement, which is also a non-financial measure like productivity, and here we bring in the third measure known as quality. What is quality? We all know it's a pure intangible, it's a perception of the customer. So we have a customer based quality, and sometimes companies, engineers or production department or quality control managers also put the word quality. Well, their measures of quality are very different than the way customers measure quality. So quality measurement effectiveness of a series of activities rather than an individual activity. So basically it's a process. Quality can never be measured as an individual activity and separated from it. Because if there's a poor quality in the preceding activity, then the next activity cannot be at the optimum quality. So that's why we have to look at it as an entire process. So the measurement effectiveness can be seen from a series of activities rather than an individual activities. So the whole aim of the quality is to make the order delivery as error-free as possible. This is what we look at from a logistics point of view. Well, we all know it's very, very difficult to measure quality, and one of the saving grace here is what we call as a perfect order. The perfect order constitutes a certain standards. When the company achieves those, then they can claim that they have a perfect order. And perfect order is a measure of perfect quality. And it is used in many other matrices also. It's a very, very important measure. So we have to see what this measure is, what constitutes a perfect order. Different companies in different sectors have defined perfect order in the same way, but using different jargons and different acronyms and different words. On a whole, perfect order is listed in the 4 points that is in front of you. The first point is complete delivery of all items requested by the customer. It can be a consumer or it can be an industrial buyer. All the goods required should be delivered. Not that you will do a partial shipment, like I'll deliver some part of it, give me more time, I'll deliver the next part of it later on. No. A perfect order is perfect because you accepted, or the company accepted, that order with the item codes and the quantities at a given price, and then they started production. If they are not able to deliver at the given time which they had promised, then that's not a perfect order delivery. That's what it means. The next part is delivery as required by customer on the day he requires. Well, some companies have added plus or minus 1 or day tolerance. That's fine. So, as the appointed day, promised date, the company must be able to deliver the goods. In fact, there are many companies say we should not deliver it even before the date confirmed or even after the date confirmed. The third point is complete and accurate documentation like bill of lading and invoices and packing list must be enclosed. It should be not just enclosed, it should be error free, it should be accurate. No problems in writing or typing of price, etc. It should be faultless installation, correct configuration, and with absolutely no damage. So all the 4, when it is achieved in a single order, we call that as a perfect order, and that's one of the great measures of quality. So there are certain measures of quality, that is frequency of damage. We all know during transportation or during packing or unloading or loading anywhere, based on the fragileness of the product that you're handling, the company handles, we will have problems with damages. What are the frequency of damages? It should be very less. And how many times after receiving the goods the customer raised a complaint, we call it customer claims. How many times after we send the goods to the customer, he didn't like it or she didn't like it and they returned. Well, this goes for both consumer markets as well as the business markets. So, how many times the order came, you had promised a delivery date, but due to material shortage, or you found there's a material shortage suddenly because the goods were the raw material used for some other production, which was very, very critical, had to be done at that point of time. And what is the frequency of that happening? All these are measures of quality. Now, the next part we go is understanding what is customer service. Customer service is very, very difficult to define because most of the companies deliver a service, and when they do a service delivery, which is a part of a package, they misconstrued it with customer service. Customer service is not same as service delivery. So, is it well defined? Well, very difficult to define again. But it is easy to see when we failed rather than when we did excellently. Okay. So, again, we need certain matrices to define it. So, we will fall back on a perfect order, which is also one of the best measures of customer service. So here we define perfect order as a degree of accuracy in meeting customer requirements, and that is customer service. What is customer service is degree of accuracy. What is service delivery is to give what customer wants. Both are linked to each other, but both are not same. Customer service has got different dimensions, and that's where it is difficult to define, or there are multiple interpretations for that. Customer service is an activity, some firms consider it. It constitutes tasks that the firm must accomplish to satisfy the customer need. Next is, some companies is believing that customer service is when they adhere to their own predetermined performance measure or specification that they have decided upon. If they achieve it, and that's customer service. The customer service is always a mindset, and this is what most of the companies try to follow and try to preach or try to inculcate in all their personnel, all the employees of the company. It should be a mindset. Every department, regardless, it is not just marketing and sales people who should be concerned about customers. Production, quality control, packaging, warehouse, administration, finance, accounts, all are holistically working towards customer. So here customer service is a philosophy. It's in the minds of the employees working. That is a firm-wide commitment to provide customer satisfaction. And that is one of the different dimensions through which customer service is seen. Again, there are different measures for customer services here. We will look into one by one. Well, fulfillment rate. What does it stand for? Fulfillment rate is how many times a customer ordered and the materials available in the stock, such that the company could pick the goods from the stock and send it to the customer. Now, why we call it a customer service measure is keeping their finished products in the stock requires planning, forecasting, and estimating what can be the kind of demand that we can receive from which set of customer during what period of time of the year. And that is what we call it as not making a customer to wait itself is a customer service. That is why we require the matrice known as fulfillment rate. Now, this is followed by stockouts. Stockouts is when the goods are out on the stock. So that is a very poor measure. That means that requires very good planning in order to see that the goods or the products do not face this situation. Then shipping errors, on-time delivery is also customer service. Reducing shipping errors is a customer service. Customer and sales personal feedback. We require feedback from both the sets of people. The sales people should give feedback, which is also one of the measures of customer. And customer themselves should get the feedback, because the salesperson may look the response of the customer from his point of view. So it is always better to take a direct feedback from the customers also, and customer service. So these are all different measures that is applied for customer service. Now, there are certain problems of delivering, whether it is a customer service or quality, because both of them rely on what is known as a perfect order. And there are several critical aspects that comes into delivering a perfect order each time when a customer orders. And well, that affects the customer quality, customer satisfaction, etc. And there are certain common causes which is listed below in front of you, which fails the company's perfect order objectives. The first one is an order entry error. So some details may be missed or may be written with a mistake, or wrong words and price has been given inputs there, or the terms of payment has been not reflected the way customer wanted it to be. So these are all different order entry errors. Followed by missing information. There is no product code mentioned properly, or the color of the product has not been mentioned properly. Non-availability of ordered items, as we said, these can be considered stockouts. Inability to ship the date given by the customer. Delay in shipping the goods, and definitely within reaching the goods. Picking error. The goods that ordered came to the warehouse. The personnel in the warehouse has picked up the wrong product. He is not able to determine through the instructions received that what is the exact product specification. He has seen a couple of words mentioned in it, and he has gone and picked up from a shelf, and that is not what the product customer required. and the office or where the order came, they can never even know that such a mistake has happened. That is another very precarious thing. So inaccurate packing list documentation, late shipment, late arrival, overcharging, even early arrival, damaged shipments, invoicing errors, all these are common causes of failure, a failure of delivering a perfect order. So if there is a failure in quality, then we need to know that some mistakes at this level has happened. If there is a failure in customer service, then we know where errors can occur. Now we'll look into the last part of your measure, that is asset measurement. Well, as I told you, asset measurement has got the quality of both financial as well as non-financial. So what exactly is an asset measurement? An asset measurement is how fast both liquid assets, well, that's inventory, the best example, and capital investment, that is fixed assets, long term, generate return on investment. That is asset measurement. Asset measurement considers both liquid as well as long term assets. So you're directly looking at the asset part of your balance sheets here. Asset measurement effectively indicates the company's ability to utilize both the working capital as well as capital investment to reach their logistic goals. And most of these measures are given in percentages. So some common asset measurements are inventory turnover, carrying cost, levels of inventory, obsolete inventory, returns on net assets, and return on investment. So that completes our internal performance measure, which is both financial and non-financial, and asset measurement is a mix of both. Now we will start looking into the external performance measure, which is in front of you, and among them there are two different measures considered. One is customer perception measures. A customer perception measure is viewed as what the customer really believes has happened when he has booked for the product or placed an order. A good customer service is incomplete if it doesn't consider customer views. So we already have customer service as an internal performance measure, but we again look at customer service from getting what the customer thinks is right, not what the company believes is right. An internal performance measure looks from the company's point of view, whereas the same metric, customer service, when it is looking from customer point of view, we call it external performance measurement. Regular feedback from the customer on the service levels and service gaps. Service gaps emerge from a customer's point of view because customer expectation versus the actual performance of the company is a gap. We can go to any services. You can go to a fast food restaurant and you say some restaurants are excellent, some restaurants are not that good. You always don't look at a restaurant from the quality of the food they serve. The quality of the food or the taste and the ingredients in the food may be same at both the restaurants or fast food outlets, but you will end up saying that one is better than the other. That reason is because there are service gaps in their delivery. The customer perception measures throws feedback on the competitor's performance. This is very essential. When we go to a customer and talk, we know what he thinks about our company, but at the same time we can get a feedback about how competitors are catering to his needs and requirements. It should regularly be conducting it, customer service, and there are independent agencies and entities like industry association and consultants or even market research firms who conduct these measurements. So we look into certain important customer perception measures. The performance cycle time is nothing but the time taken by the company to complete the entire order fulfillment process. That is very important customer perception measure. The next part is information availability for the customer. Only through surveys we can understand. If you ask a company, they may put so many information on the website, in the instruction manual, packaging on the boxes, but does customer really know where to access for what sort of information? That is also equally essential. So that's why we use the word information availability from the customer point of view. This is followed by product support services. If the customer doesn't know how to use it, are there people in the company through a toll-free number or through their dealers, the customer is able to approach them or access them to clear his doubts, rectify the problem, and that is essential part of your customer perception measure. Now we'll be looking at the second part of your external performance measurement, that is benchmarking best practices. All of you would have heard the word benchmarking, which is determining which suitable performance measures and matrices should be looked into comparable organizations, so that a firm that is benchmarking tries to emulate those measures and achieve superior results. Benchmarking looks into both practices as well as processes. It looks into its own competitors and also from companies who do not belong to the same industry. Benchmarking thus provides a foundation for customer satisfaction and, lo and behold, a perfect order. It is always advisable to look into those organizations who have achieved perfect order consistently, regularly across all the orders that they receive. And then the activities of such companies, the processes of such companies should be looked into for benchmarking, because it gives an insightful comparison through competitors or the non-competitive benchmarking. That means looking at the firms from unrelated industry. Both performance measures and benchmarking are very essential for identifying best practices of logistics, and benchmarking is done in any different areas, arenas, activities of logistics, which is like warehousing, loading, transporting, unloading, packaging, and other activities. Some common benchmarking areas I have listed here are common asset management, cost management, customer service, productivity, quality. Technology is very essential, as we have just seen in innovations, recent innovations. Transportation, warehousing, material handling, just about every process of logistics. These are very important benchmarking areas. So with this, we finish both the competitive and the different ways companies can achieve better results by incorporating both internal and external performance measures. Now we'll be looking into the another class of measurement, which is comprehensive supply chain performance measurement. It involves tracking the entire company's supply chain, and as we know, different companies in different industries have different supply chain models. The integrated performance measures must be developed across all the businesses inside the whole measurement analysis. An integrated performance measure is when the manufacturer, wholesaler and retailer, all who are involved in delivering the product to the customer, keep a common understanding of all the measurements. So there are 4 types of metrics that is involved in comprehensive supply chain performances, which is customer satisfaction and quality, which goes hand in hand. The second one is time, third is cost, fourth is asset. And this measurement monitors both the outcome and the diagnostics. We will first look into what are those outcome and diagnostics for each of these different metrics, and this is followed by we will be describing what does each of these elements or matrices like time, cost, assets mean. So let us look at the matrices, customer satisfaction and quality. Well, the outcome in this metric will be fulfillment of what we call as a perfect order. The outcome can be satisfaction, and the outcome can be product quality, and the required diagnostics for it is delivery to commit date, warranty, costs, returns and allowances, and customer inquiry response time. So these are the various diagnostics that has to be looked into by the company for achieving an outcome for the given matrice, that is your customer satisfaction and quality. In the same way, we'll go for the reverse for the next matrice. Let's look at the diagnostics first. The cycle time required for making the product or sourcing the product, depending on what kind of company business is, the supply chain response time or the production plan achievement, all are diagnostic for an outcome which is order fulfillment lead time, and that is a key matrix related to time. On the same way, value added productivity, which is basically labor related productivity, is leading to an outcome of total supply chain cost for a matrix cost. And the final part is your metric, that is assets. We'll again look at the outcome and diagnostics, cash to cash cycle time, which is explained in the next slide, followed by inventory days and asset performance. And the diagnostics required for this is forecast accuracy, inventory obsolescence and capacity utilization. These are very important diagnostics to achieve the outcomes as stated in the slide. Now let us see what each of these matrices mean. The first part on the left hand side in the previous slide was customer satisfaction and quality. They are normally aimed towards bringing overall customer satisfaction. Followed by time metrics, they measure the ability of a firm to meet customers' demand within the time period mutually agreed by the company as well as the customer. The cost element is focusing on productivity, which is basically human resource productivity. That is what we call as value added per employee. There are different formulas for this available which can be looked into. Followed by the last one is asset utilization, which has different measures of outcomes, which is first one is cash to cash cycle time. This is also known as cash conversion cycle. So what a cash conversion cycle means? It measures the time required to convert the amount paid to the amount realized. The company pays amount to whom? To their vendors or their suppliers for purchase of various goods. And amount realized is nothing but when the customer pays. The time required between the amount paid by the company versus the amount received from the customer is cash to cash cycle time. This is what we typically measure asset utilization with. Inventory days is how much time does a company take to convert their inventory into sales. So the shorter the time, it is always better for the company. Asset performance is a very simple ratio of sales to total assets and capacity utilization for optimum results. Now, besides the previous performance measurement, the new age also looks into various different approaches. One of the approaches is a balanced scorecard. The other is a score model, which is supply chain operational reference model. However, I've been very brief in this too, to get you an information about existence of these very important and very different approaches. The balanced scorecard, well, it came in 1992, Kaplan and Norton. It constitutes balance, that is again financial and non-financial measures. However, balanced scorecard is looked into with different perspectives: finance, customer, process of the business, and learning and growth perspective. The next model is your score model, which is supply chain operational reference model. It looks into supplier and customer, entire gamut of a supply chain, and covers the 5 major areas of plan, source, make, deliver, and return. However, the word return was added on later, and return here means the return of raw materials to suppliers and the receipt of returns of finished goods from customers. All these are within the framework of the supply chain. It helps in explaining the process across the entire supply chain. I'll be showing you the next figure, and there are different levels to score. However, we have to understand that score has different matrices. In fact, there are more than 150 different matrices when we use the score model. So I think this figure that is in front of you is enabling you to understand. Look at the center, plan, on the top in the blue circle. Below that we have source, make, deliver, and return. That is, in the center we say your organization. That means the company that is doing a score model. On the left hand side we are supplier, and further left we are supplier. On the right hand side we are customers of the organization and customer. So here we see that the score model uses different levels to measure the performance of the organization supply chain using standardized matrices, and standardized because comparison becomes easy. Till now we are seeing different classes of performance measurement and how companies should look into analyzing their logistics performance measurement. Now, collection of data followed by giving this data to the right person is very important in the company. Otherwise, only collection of the data and keeping it in a file or a report is equally harmful for the company. Data must be constantly fed to different levels of management so that they take appropriate decision based on their levels of authority, accountability, and powers. So primarily we all know information is a very crucial aspect in the supply chain. It is not just collecting information, but it is also sharing information, because any delay in sharing the right information at the right time to the right person will ultimately affect the efficiency of the supply chain. In this manner, we have collected 4 different levels of information which gets collected in a company on a daily basis or a monthly basis. These are divided as direction, one level of information, followed by variation, decision, and policy. Let us see what each one of them means. Information at a direction level is a very basic level. Well, what do you mean by a basic level information? It is a routine day-to-day information or business transaction or machine performances. Well, the information collected here is collated into what we call as a database. And this database is very crucial and important for the next level, the senior levels of management. So collection of data which is routine on a day-to-day basis is done by line managers. Now we look at the variation level information. A variation, as the word suggests, is how much did the observed results varied from the standard results. This variation, once it occurs, whether it's positive or negative, must be directly looked into the department heads, not just the line managers. Because the concerned authorities must be looking into the variation, which is a minor aberration, or it can be a serious matter of concern. If it's going to be a very serious matter of concern, they have to report it to the higher authorities and may even seek their support in terms of additional resource allocation for rectifying the serious nature of the variation or deviation. If it's a minor one, then they can look for solutions and resolve it quickly. Now comes the next level, which is the decision level. A decision level information is nothing but an outcome of both the direction and variation levels information. Here, the decision level, the managers are looking into bringing certain modifications by communicating to managers involved in the logistics performance. So, when I talk about modification, these are not going to bring any changes in the level of customer service standards which the company has already decided. So, it is not going to bring any change in system objectives also. These are normally handled by very senior people at a vice president level. When customer service standards or system objectives needs to be changed, that authority can be only held by top management people. And this is what we call as policy level. Because a change in the policy is directed towards the entire organization. It doesn't get restricted to one division or one department. So policy level information carries change to system objectives and service standards both. So it can arise from any activity within the organization, not just from the logistics department. And the changes in the policy is not just restricted to logistics department, it is spread across different activities of the organization also. As now we will discuss the final part of your logistic measurement, which is reporting, that is logistics report. The importance of reporting is very crucial because that is the way information flows from one place to the other, and a report is normally used by the management, the people in authority, to analyze facts and information before making a decision. So this decision can be preventive action or a corrective action. The logistics management information system is a software. Many companies have got it embedded in their tools, and reports are constantly being fed to different levels of management. Different types of information are passed on. It is important to create a structure that gives information regarding progress made to each level, to their levels of power, again accountability and authorities. So based on that, there are three types of reports. One is a status report, a trend report and an ad hoc report. Before we look into it, we'll see the objectives of logistics reports. It is to provide at different levels, as I said, supervisors, managers, top management team, which includes CEOs, CMOs, Chief Executive Officers, Chief Marketing Officers, Chief Production Officers, Chief Operation Officers, Chief Financial Officers. They constitute the top management team with the necessary information at the right time for both preventive and corrective action. It is to keep a record of a history of logistic activities, because history gives voluminous and crucial insights about what could have happened and how to prevent such problems or emulate such successes in future. It gives an overview of how logistics activities are arranged in the program and how the operations are managed, and it is better for performance evaluation. So now we look at what is the status report. The status report consists of normally operational details, and these operational details are created at the level of line managers or department heads. So basically, information in these reports are related whether the logistic activities was as per the predetermined operation plans, and well, the intensity of this separation depends whether based on the complexity or criticality of the firm's operation. So normally stock reports is one of a general example of the status report. It's a snapshot of the current scope, time, cost, quality of the activity. Next is a trend report. A trend report is very specific report, and these are very specialized with a lot of specificity in it. These reports can be generated on a weekly basis, monthly, semi-annually or annual basis. It basically constitutes of comparing the performance of logistic activity across different periods, and it focuses on concerns with regards to performance that are very critical areas for the company. It can be areas like inventory, warehouse, transportation, order processing, material movement, etc. So these reports are reviewed by department heads, and if they can possibly take a corrective action, they step in and solve the problem, or this information is used by senior executives also to prevent any problem or to request for additional resources from their superiors. The final part is an ad hoc report. Ad hoc, as the name suggests, is required very quickly, and it can be produced at any point of time at any level. So they are developed. The purpose of ad hoc report is at that point of time it is very critical, it is very crucial, you need that report. So it provides very details and a very specific areas of performance. It is not as general as status reports. It can be generated at any levels. There are two extreme levels I am taking. At the basic level, developed by line managers, and again it's a day-to-day operation. That's also an ad hoc report. The supervisor or the manager, the shift manager might be requiring the status report. So that constitutes an ad hoc report. So it can give a current problem or a potential problem. It can be signifying, it can be highlighting. It may call for additional resources also if problems are not solved at a level of management which is at the what we call as a low level of management. Some ad hoc reports are related to policy changes. These reports are not subjected to any specific division. As I said, in the policy level information, this have got wide ramification across all the different departments of the organization and towards customer service goals. So these are the different types of reports: status reports, trend reports, and ad hoc reports. With this, we finally conclude the logistics management part. Thank you.